Welcome to this month's episode of the World of Roofing podcast, hosted by John Kenny of Cotney Consulting and Andrew Rowley of roofmapping.com, where we will introduce you to a new roofing industry artisan from around the world.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of World in Roofing. As always, John Kenny here from Cotney Consulting Group. I'm happy to be here. Always look forward to getting responses back from our audience. We've been getting some great ones. Once again, I'm happy to be joined by my co-host and good friend Andrew over in the great UK. I'm sure it's a lot warmer here in Florida than it is where you're at right now.
Yeah, probably. It's starting to warm up though. Spring's on its way.
Spring's coming.
It's coming, yeah, slowly.
I love it. That's a nice spring photo you got behind you there, spring, summer. Excellent. Well, today we are honored to be joined by Ted Lang with Pritchard Pritchard. He's also located over in the United Kingdom. He'll give you a little more details on that. So, Ted, I'm going to turn it on over to you to take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the industry.
Hi guys. First of all, thanks for having me on.
Okay.
It's nice to be asked really. Feel like a bit of a fraud being on here with the knowledge that you guys have. So but in terms of my role, I work at a company called Prichard Prichard. We do mainly work in London. We do design, supply, install and maintain green infrastructure projects. So think green roofs, biodiverse roofs, brown roofs, bio-solar roofs, really important now, especially with the schools and stuff being all legislated in that way. And then it will get to things like roof gardens, podium work, green walls as well. We do a lot of them. So it's quite varied. And then my job is a mixture of kind of two hats, I suppose. It's some of it is business development stuff. So working with, let's say, the architects on whatever their needs might be, kind of around the data side of things, it tends to be like what the weight loadings might be on the roofs, how this can be specified, what this might be. And then it might be working with then the roofing contractors as well, because they've got their project secured and stuff, and then making sure that Prichard can hopefully be one of those install teams. And then the other side of things is on the tools work as well. So as a black hat, essentially I started as a labourer, so did the kind of hard yards, then got my triple STS and started to run jobs in that way. So that seemed to suit my personality, taking on the responsibility of the jobs, and it made me a lot more enjoyable. I think I quite like the stress and the pressure of the mental stimulation side of things, whereas some people they just want to shy away from that. But yeah, I just found that was naturally quite interesting for me, which is quite cool. So yeah. And then on the weekends, I've got a kind of small side hustle business called Natural Roofs, where we'll do very small domestic jobs. So almost like it fits into a nice niche really, where you've got the bigger contractors probably become too expensive for the smaller domestic jobs just because they're overheads and stuff, and then I can then kind of pick up the crumbs really, and just pick and choose if it's a nice job, if it's worth doing, if the person's nice, if it's a good job to be at, all this stuff. So it's quite nice. So can't complain too much really.
And it was Natural Roofs that Ted and I actually met. So I think he's got 7 roofs on roofmapping.com now as well. So it's interesting to see the different types, the locations.
What type of roofs do you have that you've done? A little more in depth into what makes it the green roof.
Yeah, so in terms of the domestic for natural roofs, in terms of them, a lot of them are what they call extensive sedum blanket roofs or green roofs. You've got your sedum blanket, you roll it out, it becomes instantly green. So hence the term. And they're very popular with domestic buildings, especially kind of like retrofits. Purely, a lot of the time it's a budget thing, but also it's a weight loading thing. And it's a finish thing as well, because when you roll out some sedum blanket, people go, "Oh wow, instant greenery, fantastic!" So a lot of the natural roofs jobs are extensive sedum roofs. And then in terms of the bigger jobs, it's slowly starting to become the more kind of biodiverse roofs or brown roofs or wildflower roofs. So that tends to be the mix. But natural roofs tends to be more residential stuff. It's purely for the weight loading, I'd have thought, really. That's kind of the main issue you have to get around. Yeah.
Well, one question that I have, just to detail back off of the type of the overlay you have, what is the most common waterproofing system that you're covering over? What's most popular over there that you're covering?
What's quite popular to remove a green roof would be single ply. All right, just to put that one out there. That seems to be not very popular. So that you see that a lot. That seems to leak over time. But in terms of what works, over here we have something called the FLL, and that's almost like the waterproofing kind of seal of approval for green roofs. So if a waterproofing system has an FLL kind of stamp, essentially, it means it's good to use for a green roof. So things like your kind of hot melt systems, your bitumen systems, and then your kind of liquid systems if they've got a root barrier. So we do a lot of Kemper roll. That seems to be quite good for us, really. We know it's good. It comes with a warranty. It's very flexible. It's durable, that kind of stuff. And then it works underneath the green roof too. So, yeah, I think that's what you touched upon there is really important. A lot of people tend to kind of go, "Oh, waterproofing can I go and revert value engineer it out maybe?" But it's super important to get proper waterproofing underneath, especially if you're going to put a green roof on top.
Absolutely.
It's just you pay your money, don't you? Really, and you get what you pay for in this instance. And then I've seen it so many times and get so many calls where, "Oh, my roof's leaking. Can we come along?" And it's probably a single ply roof. It's a GRP roof. They tend to be the worst ones, where it's cracked and leaked and stuff. And then, unfortunately, sometimes then they've lost their warranty because they've put a green roof on it and all this stuff. You just think to yourself, a bit of a shame, really. So, yeah, if anyone does go for if anyone does put waterproofing down, go for some good stuff. If you're in the UK, get FLL certification, and then put a green roof on it, or biodiverse roof, or anything like that. We'd be happy.
And do you think, Ted, some of those failures have come down to lack of knowledge or lack of scruples from the people who have put it on, maybe?
Yeah. Well, if you think so, a lot. Take the single ply example. I think that was what Olympics time, and that was when it was really popular. And I just don't think this seemed to be quite new, and then it was going down, like it was super popular. There was a big boom in housing and stuff, getting ready for the Olympics, that kind of thing. And there was just a need to build loads of houses and quite quickly. And then they were like, "Oh, green roofs as well, fantastic." And just over time, a lot of them have gone wrong, but it's purely a kind of time thing, I think. Not necessarily done on purpose, but it's one of those things, really. Like, not all of them fail, obviously. Yeah, I think it is. And with green roofing, it was still very immature, especially back then. It's a lot more mature now. So people are understanding it. Rather than it being a lot of roofing contractors doing the green roof because it's something they had to do, there's becoming more specialist green roofing companies or green infrastructure companies who kind of understand it. And it's important. I think it's just purely a time thing now. And Grow also helps the Green Roof organization, having that maturing as well and being run by some really good guys. Chris Bridgman and James Beattie, really good guys on there, and Giles from Zinca as well. They're seeming to understand like what good looks like and what works in the long run. And so that thinking is slowly kind of dripping into work that's being done now. So it's just one big learning curve, I think, really. So we know what works now. We kind of know what doesn't work. So here's the guidelines. You can choose to take them up if you want or not, really. Okay.
So just a quick, obviously, you sort of briefly described a green roof. What's a brown roof then? Because obviously there's lots of different colours. There's brown, there's blue, there's purple. There's lots of different sort of things kind of banded around. Can you briefly describe the differences between them?
Yeah, so essentially, green roof is all of those things are living roofs, and then to make things simple, you've just kind of color coded everything. So green roofs tend to be a seed and blanket finish, so an extensive green roof which is 60 to 80 mil substrate, green seed and blanket rolled out on top. Nice, very simple. It's probably the simplest you're going to get. That 60 to 80 mil of substrate and 25 or 40 mil drainage board is kind of growth standard. So that's what good looks like. You can get the skinnier roofs as well, green roofs as well. They're coming on lightweight stuff, but they tend to fail over time. They look good for the start, and then when the hot weather gets in and stuff, unless you've got an irrigation, you turn it on for the hot weather, but they tend to go bad. So that's what good looks like, that kind of 60 to 80 mil on a green roof. Yeah. And then you got your brown roof, which is similar type of build up, drainage, good level of substrate, maybe, I don't know, 100 or so. They're not 100 to 150 mil, give or take. Tends to be undulating, and they tend to just be left, like just for them to see themselves and let nature do its thing. Yeah. It's almost just like, here you go, have a brown patch.
So you're just putting a load of soil on the roof and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then you've got biodiverse roof, similar build up, soil that undulates between kind of 80 to 150, and then there's plants are purposely put into that. So plug plants. So you've got the UK native species, that kind of thing, seed and plugs, seeds, wildflower seeds, lots of wildflower seeds, loads of habitats. So the habitats are really important. So things like your wood piles, your sand piles for the bees, your solitary bees, loads of kind of stones and aggregates as well for kind of all the creepy crawlies. So it kind of, your best way to look at it is if you've got decent topography on the roof, if you've got stuff on there, it's good habitat. So weirdly, I went onto a roof today and kind of up in Telford to maintain it, and popped my head up, and there was loads of footballs, like the kids had kicked over. And so I was like, habitats. So what we did, we created some habitats out of the footballs, basically, because essentially it's the same thing. It's like having a log pile essentially on there, or some rocks and stuff. It's stuff that creepy crawlies can hide under, essentially. And then we took some of the kind of extra moss and some of the clippings and put it in together and just made a little den. That's a real odd, creative way to do it, but more normal way would be to, go down your log pile route, go down your sand aggregates route, that kind of thing. So, and then you've got that's your biodiverse roof essentially, and then you've got your blue roofs, which that's all about maybe more looked upon as in kind of soaking up your water, really, holding all the water in place, slowing all the flows down. Obviously, as you see with all the kind of like buildings that are being built, the big rain falls, water hits the roof straight down the drains. So the blue roof essentially acts as a slower to stop the water from going straight down. So it's a big sponge, really, and the build up is like plastic voids. So depending on the system, but let's say 100 mil plastic voids, and then the drains then are blocked. Essentially, they kind of have drain pipes on them to slow the water down. It's a filter slower. So when it rains, exactly. So as it rains, the finish of a blue roof tends to be essentially you've got your void former here, and then on top of that you've then got a green roof or a biodiverse roof. So as the rain hits it, so it looks the same from the eye, but the build-up's different. And so as the rain hits it, percolates through the green roof, waters the plants, and then is held in the blue roof void former, and that then gets trickled out a lot slower than it would if there was just nothing there. For example, and then your purple roof is similar idea, still vegetation, still substrate, still a kind of base underneath it, but it's more of it's almost mineral wool type stuff or rock wool type stuff, super absorbent. But it can be a bit controversial because it's not recyclable at the moment. So in my eyes, I think it's really good because it soaks up a lot of water. And if you've got good substrate depth, it's still good for the plants.
Yeah.
If it was recyclable, I think it would be, even more popular. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of out there.
How did you get into this side of the industry then, Ted? What got you into green roofs?
Yeah, good question. So I live in London now, and I'm like mid-30s, 34. And I moved to London about mid-20s. And mid-20s, I played a lot of rugby. Wasn't really that bothered about kind of career and stuff. And then just had the odd kind of business development work here and there. But, it was a case of just kind of going to work to get by, I suppose, And so I was a bit disillusioned with everything. And I was like, I've got a great idea. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to uni at like 26, 27 and to study football coaching. And because I was like, that's going to be my ikagi, or that's my passion, that's my purpose. And I did my first year and I was like, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm on the grass all the time. I'm learning loads. Got to my second year and we were stuck in a classroom. I was like, this is rubbish. Honestly, this is absolutely rubbish. But essentially, what happened was, once I kind of quit my job in the corporate world, I needed some kind of like flexible work around uni.
Okay.
And so I remember playing football one Saturday afternoon, and I spoke to one of the guys. He said, "How's your day?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, just quit my job and stuff." And he's like, "Oh, why?" Blah blah blah. And he said, "Oh, I might be able to get you some work in construction. Have you ever heard of green roofing?" No, never. He's like, "Right, get yourself a CSCS card." I said, "What's a CSCS card?" And so that was the next phase. And then it was a case of getting some boots and a hat and some trousers and stuff. And then I started labouring.
Wow.
Started labouring that way. And then so I did it over the summer. And then once I quit uni, I went out, got my triple SDS and just went for it, really. So, it's been really, essentially, but
that's
it's quite nice because
about roofing with your story. Once you get in, you can never get out. You're here for life now.
It is a very interesting industry, I have to admit. You're kind of constantly looking at stuff going, oh, how have they done that? Or there's such a variety in the roofing. You look at your house in the background there, Andrew. I don't know how you've managed to get the out thatch. It's incredible, especially those swans.
That's not my house, let me tell you.
That's
I dream of a house like that.
Craftsmanship.
Yeah, that is some marvelous work by Joe Thornton.
Absolutely amazing. And then you go from that. And then you kind of go to a green roof, or you go purely to then the waterproofing aspect, and then you go to the condensation side of things, and then there's so many things that you just don't have a clue about. Yeah. There's so much to really learn, which is quite nice.
And I think that's what's so good about the industry. There's so many different facets of it. It's not just I'm on a roof laying a roof. There's the design aspect and everything that goes with it as well. So that's what. That's what I like about it. It is so varied. There's such good characters in there as well. Yeah.
It's I totally agree with you. It's very interesting, and I kind of like the fact that from my point of view, and actually construction in general, if you want to just stick on a labourer's rate, you can easily just do that. But if you want to push yourself a little bit more, take responsibility, improve your knowledge, ideas, and understanding of stuff, then you can easily push up quite quickly. If you're willing to go for it. That's quite unusual, I think, in the workplace. So there's no there's no people kind of holding you back, because construction is very fast paced. You're constantly looking for people to take more responsibility on and take on challenges. And I've just seemed to do that. Seem to have done that naturally, and I've learned so quickly, and seem to have learned a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's good.
But you've still got you're still literally doing nothing. Essentially every kind of couple of days you're going, oh God, isn't that? Yeah, which is fab.
Yeah,
which is fab. Yeah,
John, do you know if green roofs are sort of popular in the States? I've seen some commercial roofs. What about the residential side of things?
Residential, not so much unless it's a flat designed house, like a custom built. I've seen them on there. Commercially, in the bigger cities, some of them are mandated to have a certain percentage. I think we're probably in the States, we're definitely behind where you're at over there. As far as using it as almost, I don't want to say every day, but part of the mainstream. But blue roofs are coming in more and more, thinking about for drainage control and flood control in cities. Brown roofs, I don't believe, and I could get wrong, somebody will correct me. I'm not really sure if I've seen that over here, where you're basically just putting down the dirt and seeing what grows. Usually it ends up with like if you're in Florida, you use a local Florida plant. If you're up in the north, you got to use something hardy that's going to be able to rebirth itself with the frost and freeze cycle. But it has the waterproofing systems are the same. You're either going to use a hot melt, or you're going to use a modified or something, or a single ply. And then I don't know if they do that there. Here on those type of systems, it's getting more popular to put in a leak detection system in with it, especially on a larger commercial project. Do you see that over there with the pre-wired leak detection in case of leak?
I've not seen that.
Generally on the bitumen, on the bigger sites, they'll go around and they'll have this thing, and they just almost look like they're doing nothing, which is probably the case. But yeah,
probably.
Yeah, it does. It's absolutely fine. Yeah.
I mean, I always like to say that every roof has its place, but every roof's not meant for every place, right? Yeah. When you think about it, makes sense. I think green roofing has a huge place in the market area, especially depending on different parts of your country. Like United States is super diverse with climates. We have, you name it, we got tropics all the way up to the frozen tundra. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. But it's slow. It was slow. It's a lot more mainstream now. People are learning more about it. I think what you said earlier, Ted, is a great example. You should specialize in it. It's not meant for everybody. A commercial roofing contractor, you kind of have a little bit of difficulty. You're more used to waterproofing contractors take on the green roofs. And then a lot of times, believe it or not, landscapers over here are what puts on the upper part of it. Because, as a roofer, what do we know about plants sometimes?
Yeah. It's the same thing, isn't it? Like, what do I know about waterproofing, really? You know what I mean? It's in the States and stuff, like, don't you have, especially in the cities, don't you have if you do a new build, do you have a necessity to put a water tank underground and have a sud system in there?
That's all controlled by local ordinances. So there are places.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
So the way it works over here, there's a national, international building code kind of is the overall building code, and then your locals, municipal, like Florida has its own building code, which is more stringent. New York City has one, Chicago, a lot of your different states, they develop and go beyond. But that would be a law state mandated in an area, what you had to do with whether you're going to reclaim it. Definitely the Western United States is a lot more focused on saving water conservation than other parts because of the droughts. And I mean, they don't have a drought right now because it's been raining and it's winter, but that they've been in it so long, you're not going to recover by having one good couple rainstorms. But they really plan a lot more for that out there.
Yeah, it's that's I think for me the water, how the green roofs go through the next, I was going to say through the roof, but that like really become more sophisticated is working on the rainwater harvesting stuff.
Yep.
So obviously it rains quite a bit here. Making sure that once the water goes onto the green roof, can it be used to almost create like natural ponds, like water areas, because the water brings the nature, and then the nature brings everything else and all that stuff, rather than it just going into the green roof and then slowly being soaked away somewhere. I think that would be really interesting to kind of look on there, look on the in terms of the next level of green roof, because your system providers seem to be pretty set. So your substrate understanding seems to be pretty set now. Then the vegetation seems to be ever changing, but it's, as a general rule, it's pretty set. But with the hot climates, there's quite a bit of experimentation with kind of non-native plants. Will they survive on the roof? So you look into places like Spain, for example, Portugal. Will plants that they use work on green roofs here? So that's kind of how that should filter through. But then also the water harvesting stuff, I don't think there's much going on there.
I don't know if you see it there. We're starting to see it here in the bigger cities, a little experimentation on actually growing vegetables out there, because you get, that fresh farm to table, plus the expense where you're growing it, where you get it from. And we know now with the way the world's changing climate wise, you don't have a dependable food source. They're like California in those areas. They're not even sure how much planting they're going to get done this year because of the extreme flooding on top of the drought. And that supplies 75% of the food source. So that could be a big deal a few months from now. So we'll see what happens. I think green roofing is a technology that's really in its infancy. And I think there's a lot of great things to come from it. It's like anything else, education. You did a great job today. I learned a lot for what you had to tell us today, Ted. I really like the way you explain the different levels and the, blue, green. You put it into terms that you could really understand, and not the, the engineering version that you get a lot of times when you look up the tech papers. We're kind of coming to an end here, but I like to always give our guests a final opportunity to say anything that we may have not asked you that you'd like to get out to our audience.
I think just if you're going to have a green roof or a living roof, make sure your waterproofing's good. Make sure your roof can hold the weight. And then if you're going to have something up there, it does need maintenance, low maintenance, not no maintenance. And then make sure you've got access to the green roof as well. That's also important. Factor that in if you're doing a big building or something. That's also really important. But yeah, they're great fun. They're very interesting. The benefits are fantastic in terms of adding biodiversity, protecting the waterproofing over time, creating a kind of like water harvesting section, slowing all the water rate down, insulating your building. There's so many benefits. And once you kind of have one, why would you not have another if you so I'd look at it.
Those are great tips.
Definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Andrew, any closing remarks? Andrew, any closing remarks?
No. Like you said, it's very informative. So thank you very much, Ted. That's been brilliant.
All right. Well,
thanks very much for having me, chaps.
We're happy to have you, and appreciate you spending the time with us. That being said, I'd like to again bring us to a close and thank our audience for watching our episodes, and our viewing audience is growing. I love to see the statistics on that, so keep them coming. If you have any suggestions that you'd like to see, please let us know, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.